continuing to put your blood, sweat, and tears, your entire soul into something, if it's just going to be dashed. And I really thought for a while that as soon as my contract was done on the X-Files, that would potentially be the end of Gillian the actress. My name is Gillian Anderson, and this is the timeline of my career.
Doing good?
I'm all right. Want some coffee?
Sure.
I was living in New York, and I'd been auditioning for what felt like my entire lifetime and not getting any work. And then on one day, I got 3 jobs. And I had the choice between doing an off-Broadway production of Carol Churchill's Mad Forest, the very first production of it, or doing a play at the Long Wharf Theater in New Haven, Connecticut, and doing a small film. And because I was greedy, I chose the thing that was 2 rather than the thing that was 1. And one of those 2 things was the film The Turning. And so it was really my first film that wasn't a student film. I couldn't tell you what the script was about, actually, to be honest, but I got to act in a film, and that seemed to me the most important thing in the world.
Where you been?
Been knocking around.
You back now?
April!
But in the case of a woman, my sister, who was gunned down in cold blood in a well-lit apartment building by a shooter who left the weapon at the crime scene, we can't even put together enough to keep anybody interested.
So when I auditioned for the X-Files, I wasn't in the habit at that time of auditioning for television because I really just wanted to do film, but I wasn't getting any film work. And so after about a year, I think I started auditioning for television. And pretty soon after that, I got called in to audition for the X-Files. I guess when I auditioned for Scully, at that juncture, it was just a pilot, and I didn't even know what a pilot was when I was auditioning for it. I also don't think that I thought ahead to what that would mean if I got it. I mean, I probably assumed that I probably wasn't gonna get it. I certainly didn't fathom that it could be almost a decade. And none of us did at the time, but it was, to me, in that moment, I was only auditioning for the pilot. I mean, I really didn't know anything, but it was that was my education. I essentially grew up in front of the camera. The series became, one of the #1 television shows in the world. So very suddenly, David Duchovny and I became household names. And the fact that we filmed in Vancouver was such a godsend because, back in LA, there was paparazzi everywhere at that time. And in Vancouver, there wasn't paparazzi. And so we got to kind of live our lives, not that we had any time to live our lives, but we got to not be harassed and just focus on our work. At some point in the first season, I became pregnant. And that was probably one of the biggest grounding blessings, I'll say, was having a child in the midst of this crazy whirlwind, because I had to get my priorities straight and focusing on my #1 priority, which was my daughter, and my #2 priority, which was showing up for this job that was, going out of control, but at the same time was an extraordinary thing to be a part of, and there was an extraordinary responsibility to be a part of it. I definitely think that she, was a gift.
If I may say so, sir, it has everything to do with interest. Just not yours and not mine.
The problem I have with you is that I'm attracted to you.
When I did Playing by Heart, I don't feel like I was looking for romantic comedy. I was just happy to have a film job in the midst of doing this TV series. And so the fact that it had Jenna Rollins in it was, I was gaga about that. And also happened to have Sean Connery in it, which was pretty darn cool. I felt so green. I felt like such a fish out of water. I think I had very low self-esteem at the time. I felt actually more like an imposter doing that film alongside Jenna Rollins and Sean Connery and being on an actual film set than I think I ever felt doing the X-Files. Doing Playing by Heart was the first time since being immersed in Dana Scully that I was attempting to step out and do something completely different from Dana Scully.
I don't deal with passion well.
Maybe you don't like that loss of control. You prefer to be the director, telling everyone what to do.
You can find me any afternoon at my aunt's. Come see me there and we can have a quiet talk.
When I was cast in House of Mirth, I was familiar with Terence Davies' films, which I think was quite rare. He was quite an obscure director. When I heard that he was interested in me for House of Mirth, I couldn't believe it. I was so excited and astounded. And it turns out that he'd never seen the X-Files. He'd never seen me act. It was just based on my headshot, I think, that he wanted to meet me, which was fine. Whatever gets you in the door. And I went to meet him and we read together and he ended up offering me the role. And it really felt like a huge responsibility to me at the time, I think, because I always had wanted to do period work and this was my first opportunity to do that, and it was a feature and it was working with a director that I admired, and so it really felt like I was in the midst of my career finally. It felt like that my career was now getting going because I was going in the direction that I had imagined I'd wanted to. And Terence is a complex character, and we had our ins and outs and ups and downs, and it felt like it was that it took a lifetime to film that movie in some ways, and yet I felt confident about it. I felt while I was doing it, I felt like I was giving it everything that I had. After the movie came out, it had some pretty decent reviews, and yet there was one review that was awful about me and my performance. And for whatever reason, this reviewer just did not like my performance at all. And he was quite cruel. I'd never had that experience before in my life, ever. And I thought that I should quit. It really got to me. And I thought that what is the point? So what is the point of continuing to put your blood, sweat, and tears, your entire soul into something if it's just going to be dashed? And I really thought for a while that as soon as my contract was done on the X-Files, that would potentially be the end of Gillian the actress.
Very well, Gus. I shall come with you.
I have something to tell you. Something so dreadful, I'm not sure that I have the courage to speak the words.
When I was offered Bleak House, it was after I had finished filming the X-Files. And so I'd done 9 years, and I'd moved to London first to do a play immediately after the series ended, and stayed. And while I was living here, I got the offer of Bleak House completely out of the blue, and I was really shocked because there were so many things that I felt that I could do as an actor and that I wanted the opportunity to do. But at that juncture, after playing, you know, pretty much a singular character for almost a decade, I couldn't necessarily trust that anybody else thought that I could do anything but a Dana Scully. I remember sitting in front of them and saying, you know, what makes you think that I can do this? Like, what? I knew that I could, but I was shocked that other people thought that I could. There's something about working on work that is masterful text that allows an actor, I think, to fall into it, to just relax and know that if you're in it and if you've done the work and you've done the research and you know that it will catch you and it will lead you. And so I knew that I trusted it. I trusted the production. I trusted the director. I really started to, it was the first time that I would sit on a set and work through dialogue in situ, which, you know, I was so used to just, you know, memorizing whenever I could lines at the end of doing a 17-hour day and, you know, being so exhausted doing the series that I was basically just, you know, showing up to say my lines. And this was different, and it felt like I was honing my craft in a different way. And there was space and time and respect and expectation that I would and that I could.
I never knew you lived. They told me you had died only hours after you were born.
Then stop hiding behind the mask of amnesia.
We're all wearing masks to some extent.
Well, I think after I had done, you know, so many years on X-Files, I, you know, in my head, I definitely wasn't going to do another series again. It really took something like The Fall that was so different and so spare and mature and unique, I think, to kind of turn my head. And so when The Fall landed on my lap, it you know, when Stella landed in my lap, I don't feel like I'd ever seen or read a character like that before. And, you know, after talking to Alan Cubitt, the writer, and to the producers, you know, and hearing him say that he had written it with me in mind, you know, that's a great line to tell an actress. You know, it's easy to be swayed by that, but it did feel special. And it felt like I could set aside my my own parameters and judgments and potentially do series again. And when we were shooting, it felt, you know, like a really tight, small crew in Northern Ireland, and I'd just been working for, you know, a massive network in the States, and I liked the fact that it was so intimate. It just felt like a whole different way of working that was, you know, human to human, and as opposed to human to corporation. And that was really meaningful to me as well. So I think that I started to get more confident during the X-Files, but Stella Gibson of The Fall really, I think, changed things for me, just in terms of feeling my own power in a character, and being trusted by the people that I was working with to pull her off, and that I would know how to play her complexities and etc. Every role that I've ever played has added to a newfound confidence and a trust in myself.
That was me. That was my voice.
Otis, it's perfectly normal for a younger man to be sexually attracted to a mature woman. Sex education, it came to me at a time when, I guess, I don't know, I've been looking for to do comedy for a while. I don't get offered much comedy. For whatever reason, I first started to read the scripts and wasn't responding to them, and it was the Easter weekend, and I think I passed on the Thursday or Friday before Easter. At some point, I guess over Easter, I was with my kids in Norway, and I'd told my partner that I'd passed, and he'd asked who the exec was on it, and I told him that I thought it was Cindy Holland, who was also the exec on The Crown. And he said, if Cindy's behind this, it's got to be good. He said, do you still have the scripts? And I said, yeah, you could, read them if you want, but I've passed. And I remember lying in this tiny bed. We were staying at a friend's house, and it was freezing cold, and I was in a bed, no wider than this chair. And it was like the middle of the night, and my phone kept lighting up. And he was reading the scripts and texting me and going, oh my God, this is so funny. And oh my God, that bit where ... And he kept saying, you've got to read it again, you've got to read it again, because he was finding it so hilarious. And so I did when I got back, and he was right. It was funny. And so I said yes. And now we're shooting the 3rd season. In Sex Education, it was the first time that I was being handed, properly comedic material and allowed to expand and just have fun. And I think that because, again, Jean is a complex character that has so many contradictions, and the joy of playing a character with so many contradictions. I can't speak highly enough of that for an actor to be, because you can pretty much get away with anything.
Intercourse can be wonderful, but it can also cause tremendous pain.
My goal is to change this country from being dependent to self-reliant, and I think in that I am succeeding.
It was a mixture of, just the trajectory of my life and my career and the different levels of seriousness, or at least the weight that I have put on the seriousness of the roles along the way, have all, I think, led up to this moment of playing Margaret Thatcher in The Crown, and, having faith in my own ability as an actor. In my ability to research a person enough that I feel confident in my own ability to feel like I have done the work and the footwork along the way, to feel that I can show up in the first few days of being on set and trust that I've done everything I possibly can do to do justice to this woman and to this character that somebody else has written. If I'd been handed her, 5 or 10 years ago, without some of the stuff in between, including the theater work that I've done, every role along the way, I feel, has taught me something that has led to this moment today, to be able to play her. And I think if you take away any of those, there would have been a lesson learned there that I would be lacking in this, in this gift of a performance today.